Tarantula, time for the massive come sing ya. Black tarantula, don't play with my style, I might sting ya. Black tarantula, you want me in check me, but I give cash name a week, Irish
So yeah, anyway, so enough about the unconstitutional duo. That could be at its face why they don't like the word constitution. It also has the word con in it, and you know, what if someone catches them one day? So they better not speak of the Constitution. Like how Roger Shaw thought the word context meant that he could rip off the alphabet. I better go to chores. Yeah, it's quite striking. It always reminds me of DJ Mashy compilations or singular Mashy tracks that can be downloaded, in which two songs, more than just a crossfade from one song to another, two songs are mixed together, but that's using, it can be as much as enough to contain more than 90% of each track melded together, essentially mashed together, as they'll say, to produce a new track. It's like a hybrid track. One recent one I admire is the galvanized Chemical Brothers mashed with the Imperial March from Star Wars. I think that's very cleverly done. But I've been thinking of applying like DJing concepts, DJing method to either analytical and written treatises of works and ideas from various philosophers. So, to go another step further from saying I'm not an ideology for which I could be martyred, I would say, even for Freemasons, all you have to do is not be in a religion that Capital Chemist tells you they want you to consider really significant to your identity, to identify by, or otherwise I never really set foot in O'Connor Chemist in 2009. Because yeah. Basically, Elizabeth Brennan didn't go out on a limb, because I know what the question was now. It must have been, well, what does he believe in, So they hadn't considered then the possibility of, modern nihilism, and not even modern, but existentialism. The concepts like the teachers on the purpose of existence had to be, criticized and rebuked, even, because if something as important as life itself is to be ascribed a purpose, don't you think that it should be tailor-made more so than any suit would ever be? Don't you think it would be? It's like going, yeah, I got a suit, I got a jacket and suit dry cleaned, and I had to. A tailor had to stitch the pants so they fit. So the suit's tailor-made for me, but that's just for wearing on certain outings. It's not for you to identify yourself. So I and the suit have the same personalities intermix, and I feel the holy fabric and fucking all this shit. Like, I don't know why with what I knew, they knew about me. It must have even been religious discrimination against non-religion, which is atheism. It's this is illustrated in a spoof. I recorded those today talking about, we've created a new religion called Christalism to find religious grounds for the celebrating the use of crystal meth, and So I say earlier on in the career, they were looking at some of what I was writing about atheism, going, well, it's like he believes in nothing. What does he believe in? What does he believe in? The video, like, spends a lot of time at home watching on his television. Maybe that would explain Elizabeth Braden saying some Homer Simpson abject and out of the blue Homer Simpson reference she made. Imagine this woman you meet for the first time. They're her first words to you, Homer Simpson. Like, no, they were like, wasn't that Maggie's first words? I mean, so them being into seeing is believing as much as they are, they looked into me, and no doubt would they have not have read some of my atheist writings, but they had the view of it of an apologist, going, well, then what does he believe in? What does he believe in? Which, as I became a peruser of ideas themselves, and not an adherent to any one philosophical creed or treatise or anything like that. What did they think? Well, then, he obviously can't believe in this atheism because it's the absence of theistic belief. So let's assume he therefore believes in the television because he likes to sit on his couch and look at the television. And Elizabeth went straight for the Simpsons, looking at me and going, Homer Simpson. Right. At the time, I thought it was just prejudice towards me by reference to television. Not, we're asking ourselves, what does he believe in? And they're going to reach a lot of absurd conclusions with that sort of framing the question that way. We've got to make him believe in something. That's so depressing. Otherwise, we'd be so depressed. But, if you could have perhaps more than depressed, because of the experiences he's had with the Christian religion, both in general and in terms of his former church's experience. If they did, they would go, well, therefore, so their question was not with like how to help build my education and workplace training. It was help me find something to believe in, even though science is freely admitted to be a tool, a man-made tool. Einstein writing on the philosophy of science is no less valid, despite the fact that he lost debates with Niels Bohr concerning his contentions. He found as certain ideas of relativity were being challenged by Niels Bohr's pioneering insights into quanta. And so, science is a man-made tool. But with them being religious believers themselves too, they probably think science was, someone found the golden bull calf that Moses' former followers were praying to before he ordered them to all kill themselves in order to purify themselves. Symbolically, of course. So science couldn't be a tool to their mind, then it's some sort of religious gift to them from a religious deity. Some sort of, I wish I knew that was the terms of those, because from my point of view, they're leaving out these adamant and blatant references to religious belief, standing in judgment of me, and I thought it was about what their prejudices surrounding words, like statements like genes cause crime. Yeah, so I wasn't in store for a number of lessons about how, and that's not to say I consider myself mentored in respectable pharmacy, self-composure from locums who I mentioned, like Anthony Lamb and Alan Jackson, and they were great. They know what scientific method is. They know what pharmacist code of ethics is, and none of them would say things like, I like it when people are sick on high rebate medicines. No, it's shit. It's shit if anyone's sick. But that's another thing a religious person will never consider is that, although there were some in the company that were so kind as to point out that they would consider paranoia. Sorry, it's psychosis. It's a lot like psychosis, is what I was told. Religion. So in teaching me for the staff to then build on my education and teach me they now want me to be religious again in 2009, mid-2009, after not keeping a post-probation period contract arrangement at the Canberra Hospital, and Elizabeth Bredenthal Child of God thing. Yeah, so it's like, well, we've taught you that religion is pretty much like psychosis. Thank you for teaching me that. Much appreciated. I will bear that in mind. I was originally thankful for that information. This didn't come from any managing pharmacist at the time. But this was certainly managing pharmacist who had said this to me. You're a child of God. Like, you're a child of, fuck, why don't I invest in a pharmacy education and training investment complement. They might as well have told me about a whole different industry. Yeah, no. I could be an artist doing the sort of art work in the arts that was like a lifelong dream fulfilled. And I would still be probably having problems with the attrition from those that are adherents to faith-based theistic belief systems, and I'd probably still encounter that same elephant in the room, doing a job that would be my ideal and most perfect dream job now. So if I'm doing a job where I'm having to prove myself worthy of an actual officially officiated employment, I don't know how many people have worked the same job for nearly a decade just to try to get told they're the most versatile member of the team, like 6 years into the job. Oh, so out of a team of people, all of whom have proper employment documentation filled out by all of them, and they're in the same team as me, but you're saying to me, Pete, that I'm the most versatile member of the staff team, but I'm the only one not yet deserving of a... Oh, it's my genes, right? You wanting to see how if my genes do something? So it's going to take nearly a decade of constant checks from you, just to check that my genes don't suddenly make me, punch a hole in the wall. If they're that concerned about genes making me, do something truly hardcore, fucked up, then given what they already knew about, given that, they have belief in genes and belief in, stupid enough beliefs to think I'd believe in the TV, yeah, I didn't sign up to that team at all to answer to their fucking belief systems, nor be recruited into their belief systems. So it's, and yet they wanted to martyr me for my ideological cause, 2010, which I don't even have. They were concealing from me, and they ended up demonstrating they had, some of them, amongst upper management. So, I mean, they stand more better grounds, more truth to saying that those ones should have been martyred, be getting martyred. It is a massive, massive conflict of interest to educate an employee to consider that Christianity is tantamount to paranoid psychoses, which means, as far as this company is now saying to me, if I were to re-embrace a religious belief system, they could not do so without comprehending that it's deemed like a paranoid psychosis. So it was my mental health I was looking at to keep in good form by remaining with keeping the atheism that I love so much. They want me to give up that, convert, only to conclude that I've now been taught to accept that I have a paranoid psychosis because of an attempted religious conversion worked towards by the owner of the O'Connor Capital Chemist at the time. Just in case I was believing in Homer Simpson. Like I said, she's got those chins, so she could have perhaps paranoid views about the likeness between her and Homer Simpson. Maybe she'd like to talk to a counselor about something like that. Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, and they're two great texts, in literary history. That might be too modern for Elizabeth Brennan. She's got what she believes in. I just hate it when, they think you think in terms of trust matter. So that means you're saying what she thinks. I go home and I watch The Simpsons at home, so I have a faith-like trust in Homer Simpson. Wow. What I can say to that is, wow. What a degenerate. What a despicable level to stoop to. After I'm supposed to be working my ass off to get to win over. And no wonder it's taking so long to win them over then. I reckon sociological, ethical level. No wonder. Because, if the people making these sorts of calls had been any of these locums, or the original owner of the Hughes Chemist, in the notable Australians book, not the you know, not the cheerleading squad for antipsychotics and rebates. Rebates I have known and loved. You know, not the more people sicker the better theory. But anyway, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done for now. A part of the reality of working in Roger Toll's company is that he will make it's taxing on your intellect prior to joining his company. He'll make unwanted and irrelevant sex discrimination act violating accostings during work shifts. And you would expect from the way he speaks that he would have substantial qualifications in fields like psychology, psychiatry, policing, then you learn he's just a Freemason idealist who feels that the world never adequately acknowledged the genius of his church. Satellite light there on Melbourne Street. Well, actually, my trip to visit a couple of friends in Melbourne earlier in this decade's foggy. It's almost feels a bit like someone else went on that trip, because it marks the closure of a chapter and the starting of a new one. It's, you know, I could see why people might have a problem with thinking of credible claim, credibility to my claim, and when I say that I consider Roger Toll to be the worst criminal I've ever encountered in all my life in Australia, and the most disgusting human being. It's why it intimidated me when, I think it was Amanda Galbraith referenced that he was concerned with corrections of some kind, and I just found to trust in this great professional privileged information of his, and then to hear what he would have to say to you during work shifts, you would think, you know, what is it exactly you research? You would think he was one of those paranormal nuts. You know, and that he could say things like, well, we're a private sector company because we don't agree with the magistrate and the federal government concealing knowledge of extraterrestrial involvement. It's clear they've been here since as early as the 50s, Roswell, and you know, so I return to my lab and play Boston albums because, you know, I wish that the federal government would admit to the truth and admit to the superior mentality of the Freemason Church. That he ever just the logistics of knowing you've insulted someone, knowing that you were the owner of the company and they were an employee, and that you've insulted them and violated at least 2 discrimination acts during a work shift, made them think that that has to be acceptable to them. Had your other staff insist that genes cause what I would say are the results of human choices, though granted there would be elements of external pressures contributing to when a person would potentially make one such choice of that kind. And, he's saying, oh no, it's genes. Genes cause violence. Watching him tell of his Mason homo partner, Gary, telling a girl at the Tuggeranong store, and she asks him, oh, what causes violence? And he's like, genes. It's like he doesn't give much. It's like he doesn't give much consideration to. He'll give more consideration to wanting to seem like this grand poobah than going, well, shouldn't I owe this employee not only credible information that as a scientist, but what if this young employee was looking up to him and trusting in his company to know certain things as scientists and strictly in their capacity as scientists? And what would he do with that sort of trust? What they would both do is trust. I'm astonished. Gary did make a family, and I think he has. I would imagine that Roger tends to, hammer him up with, the capitalist fascist hoo-ha that they're into. The ringleader, that is to say. Roger would be the ringleader. But yeah, and so to have violated as many discrimination acts as he would verbally, and then if he's investigative, I would try to work within the knowledge that he has this research capacity of his, and go, well, okay, I'll let him research that. I'm not impressed when he does these legitimate accostments that aren't work related. He can research that I generally prefer not to even converse with him. And I would think things like, maybe if he thinks more and stuff like that, then he won't be into these. He won't offend me so much. So to not be able to deduce like that, I wouldn't trust him to investigate, a lice infestation on a domestic cat. Right, and when he talks about his nerve by nerve methodology, it's like it's really very this little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. It's disgusting. Like it explains so much, like the things I wound up learning about him in the end. And I just wished I'd known them earlier, or that I had the freedom, because you really don't. What you don't get as an employee is you aren't at liberty to scrutinize. It's why there's such a fondness taken to locums when you're lucky enough to have a locum like Anthony Lamb. Sorry, one moment. Cigarette. Anthony Lamb or Alan Jackson. It's almost like a party within the chemist itself, because these men are not afraid to be questioned, invite being questioned. And they're the ones who I think actually show the perennial relevance of community pharmacy. Men like Gary and Roger Toll think, well, the sooner these fucktards are replaced by vending machines with prescription drugs in them, the better, you know. We can say for certain that the vending machines are going to be more observant of basic rights than Gary and Roger. You know, I mean, they had to have known. Years leading up to the Downer business, Roger knew from my speech to him, from a conversation out the front of the Hughes shops, that given that, you know, so if he looks into your private life, makes you aware that he's looked into your private life, and then it costs you violating the Sex Discrimination Act, and you're trying to work out if some of his other judgments are influenced by religious discrimination as well. So I was sort of being polite to him as I saw it, because I was sort of saying, you know, I mean, I suppose that, yeah, there's definitely been some of the creative projects I've done with people over the years, there's arguably been elements of, I mean, some of it fucking around just for the sake of experimenting with software, particular types of software. And there was little to no forethought in terms of any end goal for the project, and so it was just keeping in touch with the creative side, and you know, so I wouldn't have a problem with, you know, saying, well, maybe there were elements of homoerotic humor in some of the more satiric parody like art, sarcastic and comedic art that we'd make. And I probably would be open even to certain, you know, making certain moves if it was for the sake of a art production. But yeah, just the stuff, the assumptions that Roger will go off, and like you wind up thinking it's astonishing because you get given this mythos of him like there's a method to his madness sort of thing, like there has to be because he's involved in this corrective work. So there's got to be some sort of method to his madness, and even if what he says to you is just downright fucking rude and offensive, he's the boss, and you know he's got your best interests at heart. So just trust, and you know, otherwise your alternative view is that he'd be this religious bigot who does not care to violate the Sex Discrimination Act, conceals religious, epistemologically prejudiced judgment, arrays of judgments. Because, you know, I can tell you now from people, like they would say a lot to me about people's skills, and so would Peter, and so would locums, and so would patients. Patients I'd have to deliver Webster's to would say like that they didn't think they saw me achieving more than being in a retail job, and one patient had a prosthetic leg and extended an invitation for me to attend his funeral and pay my respects when he passed away, sadly, and Mr. Setnikar was a very nice man. And it's really a minimalist sort of thinking. Seemed to me that it just came to be second nature, that I got along with the staff, the customers I got along with, and the staff that I got along with. There's obvious, yeah, but you know, so the way that like that they talk about, you know, the private sector and it's a private company, and you know, so private that the comprehensive or elaborate definition or a sufficient definition of the term company privileged or company confidential information is even kept private from the staff. So you don't know to what end you're protecting the information that you're copying from various directions, and much of which is you could have your employer, the co-founder, fucking charge for, I suppose. But and then you think, why isn't it second nature to them that if, especially after you tell them, like, just as you are a private company, my privacy when I am living at home alone matters a great deal to me. In fact, you're making it harder for me to respect your sincerity and you know, so-called integrity of management for you guys as a private company, because you will not fucking know when to go. I mean, if I had the means to, that I wouldn't fucking violate Gary Cairns' privacy and go, oh, I was just checking on your love. I've read a bunch of Freemason debunking modern philosophers, and I thought, you know, I was just checking in on your love. I just thought you could do with some corrections, because, you know, being involved in a cult of secrecy can be quite detached. You can detach yourself from reality. So I'm just checking in, love, because we want to help. I want to help you fix your problem. Like, if I had half the people skills that they were saying I had, why don't they think that if I was plagued with life debilitating intellectual problems, I wouldn't find and seek help from an agency or third party of my own initiative? Why do they not think that after I caught their shoplifter? I mean, do they have the fucking... Are they doing the drugs I should be doing, but giving them a bad name? I'm not sure. But why it doesn't occur to them? Well, we're asking them to respect a whole bunch of stuff about how we're a private company. Why don't we model by example and show that we respect our workers' rights to privacy? You know, and yet that they can't fucking comprehend that basic show of good manners. Constantly throughout your career. And I don't know what goes on before you're welcome to a new store, like me getting welcome to O'Connor. I don't know why Elizabeth Breton thought, given how much I knew they would violate my privacy, how the fuck did she think I'll try and make him become a Christian again while he's working for me, or, you know, I mean, they knew that I was disabusing myself of church experiences, and I'd studied the falsification of the Christian religion. They knew this all meant a great deal to me, and I wasn't turning up to work insisting that they give me 10-minute silence so I can speak on atheism to them, or anything like I'm doing on the web show now, where I'm finally articulating some of the things that I spent some years discussing in forums. I didn't. Christopher Hitchens would talk about this. The pact, the good, the friendship pact with the faithful, which is what the only conditions are. Like, it's like, well, yeah, sure, we can all coexist, but don't expect that if I had children that you can voice your religion on my children while they're at school. Don't expect it to be ever appropriate to mandate a religious view from an employer to an employee during a work shift. If it was true that her father passed away recently before she employed me, I don't know what she thought. Luke's largely estranged from his father, so he must love knowing what it's like growing up without a father. My father has died, so I know Luke was terribly has a lot of resentment toward the Christian religion. So I'll give him a job, accost him out the back of the shop, call him a child of God, and fucking God bother him to the point that he can't concentrate on the arithmetic. Because this is one thing I was thankful to Capital Chemist for. I thought, wow, look at what a difference it's making in my life. Once I've been able to enjoy falsifying this religion, putting it out of my mind, I'm actually doing much better at tasks that related to subjects in school where I struggled without realizing just how much Christianity and the Christian agenda had been an impediment and a hindrance to my progressive learning. So I was very thankful to them on that front. And I don't know I can't fathom what went on through Elizabeth Bretton's mind to do that. And then the fucking early childhood references. You would think, does that come to them from Roger? Like, he really does. It's funny when Dawkins talks about us being these, or Manson thinks about us being these damaged provider modules, spill seeds of our own stupidity at our children's feet, and Dawkins talking about us being the vehicles for genes. And yeah, Roger's got this egocentric view of himself as like a kind of an emperor. He built a franchise. He loves having responsibility. But I've not known anyone so uninvitedly nosy and rude. And there are topics of information and for which there are conversations that I would be more than prepared to have to engage in such conversations if the person initiating the conversation were capable of phrasing questions. Like, they watch me do it all the time, serving customers and asking questions. And Elizabeth Bretton just did not. She could even say, "Are you cool to say something about what your philosophy is in life?" Instead of saying you're a child of fucking God. I mean, the woman made me want to. Well, she actually made me want to do my job and put her shit out of my mind. But like, when you have no documented, employment agreement with employee rights stipulated, and you've been sort of led on a string that convince us that you've got what it takes and you'll win this permanency offer. Once I saw what she's actually willing to do with that privileged trust, the confidentiality trust, where Roger most certainly has the upper hand, what they'll do, and the timing couldn't have been worse. but it's the basic, like, why would a scientifically based organization for which you can't buy a packet of aspirin without getting asked questions, and yet if you're staff, they would just spout dictatorial hogwash that's directly offensive to you, and that they'd have to know was even directly offensive to you. And then the early childhood references, I didn't get that. High school was, even getting picked on in high school didn't come close to the capital chemist fucking disaster. That woman is fucking obnoxious. And I watched these factors converge. I'm like, okay, well, constant privacy violating, check. Failure to initiate conversations with question asking, check. And like, it led me to go, now, how easy will it be for them to assume that I've just based on their behavior towards me during work hours, that I've crossed someone dear to me in my personal life outside of work? Just you watch them. Like, watch them get wound up. Their tempers were so pathetic. And like and I watched them do it to themselves. This is what has put me off pharmacy, is that I'm truly convinced that unless I were to have become a locum, if I could do it, I kept going back and forward. Then I noticed how much DJing improved my health, and felt like a more honest line of work. But these people these managers can be such rude cunts to staff. It's like, can't you think of what onus is on you as a manager to have all these staff comprehending that they've got to protect your privileged information, and then you can't even think of rudimentary manners, meet and greet manners when conversing with staff? You're rude, irrelevant, rights violating. And meanwhile, it's now second nature to us to protect your interests. I don't know. Does Elizabeth Breton want a photograph of my penis as a 5-year-old? The way she'll talk about her early childhood. Maybe I should see if she wants to buy one. It would fit with her fucking obsession with hers and Roger's obsession with my childhood. I did a nudie run in an Akubra hat out in the backyard one afternoon. I was 5, so what with Roger's theory, I was into wild promiscuous sex at that age, possibly. I mean, the guy, yeah. So Dawkins is talking about us being hardwired for procreation, and Roger seems so antithetical to, a metaphysical and abstract love of life. And it bears out in the way he comes forward with these irrelevant and offensive statements and frames even idiotic questions. And so what does he think? I've heard his expressions like "I own puss," and then he thinks people reach out for his help without signing constitutionally binding requests for any of his corrective efforts. Him and Gary both seem to have that element of religiously assuming what constitutes a reach or an access point to them for their help. It's horridly egomaniacal. It's as if they didn't see the opportunity to help sick people recover as that's the sick people potentially entrusting their lives to you. It's not you getting to put yourselves on this pedestal. It makes me sick, that fucking attitude. So so disrespectful and indecent. But yeah, Roger, Gary, Elizabeth Braden's session with my childhood. That was pretty much, I guess, the next step was all that was left. But if I gave them some of my mum's baby photos shortly after my birth, or the photo of this nudie run I did in the backyard at age 5, then they could look at a 5-year-old boy's penis. That's the type of Peter Holder would say there's a pharmacist with integrity when talking about was it Ed Wright from Cornwall? Someone who battled the bureaucracy. They're the ones I like, not these interest in GNP based interest in optimal HIC claims for rebates for antipsychotics. Not only confess to a sense of greed in some, but it can even lead them to assuming that they have, they graduated from the Freud school of Jacques Lacan, Derrida, and Sartre, and all these existential thinkers and psychoanalytical thinkers. They just happen to know all the things that these guys knew and have been that considerate. Yeah, right. Bullshit. If any of that were the case, you would know in the basic manners of how you don't introduce yourself to someone saying, well, Peter is quite notorious for hiring little boys. Oh, be a good poof. It's like, what motivated him not to have children and yet to think he's got something to do with corrections, yet to outright lie through framing false issues, what's called the straw man fallacy, and he probably hasn't even heard of. I haven't known him to mention a single logical fallacy. It's a disaster. He's an example of what Sam Harris has talked about in speeches throughout the past decade about 21st century technological advances, fostering potentially some of the worst religiously discrimination-motivated crimes and criminal acts and horrid behavior and mistreatment of others because there was a scientist who would say, when I put my lab coat on and go into the laboratory, I become an atheist. He was a religious scientist. People like Newton were sort of inspired to some extent by theology at the time. It is very hard to say what some of these men. See, I'm not saying they're all bad. They're all bad. I'm just saying that, particularly when you get back into the years of someone like Newton or Galileo. I mean, 1992, and the Catholic Church say, "Oh, sorry, Galileo," in 1992, because they wanted to believe Earth was God put it at the center of the universe. So these men, when they worked, religion and government were still very deeply intertwined, and direct opposition, which would include, their life being put, that it was risky. It was risky to apply scientific methods, be ethically endearing in the way that one would uphold the liberal scientific method, do all these very impressive calculations, and discover things like Earth is rotating around the sun. It's not doesn't seem God's placed it at the center of the solar system, and not encounter opposition from the religious right in their day. So, the principle of the suspension of judgment which means all you'd have to do is go, well, this explanation or account or story is not good enough. It doesn't have explanatory power. So you don't have to, and this addresses that dichotomy that atheists cop a lot, where they get told, well, yours is a position of denial of God's existence. You haven't come to terms with it yet, or it means you're against God. We don't wake up each morning. I didn't wake up this morning thinking, oh, life's so good when you're a non-astrologer, or a non-pagan. We don't define ourselves by what we're not. So, not a theist, which is what atheism means, just means not a theist. Just like Christians don't wake up each morning thinking about all the gods, the 1,000 or the 999 gods that they don't believe in. They didn't wake up this morning thinking, oh, it's nice, it's Wednesday and it's a nice cool breeze and I don't believe in Zeus and now I'm going to have a coffee. People don't think like that. But so much I could have parted that on decent terms with mutual respect between myself and management, that company. Andrew White, actually, he's an impressive pharmacist. Where I feel sorry for the managers that some did confide in me about pressure. A speech from Gary here and there. You're compared to the other stores, you're down, because I can see the locum pharmacist would be free of that level of stress. I'd like to know what a business is going to cost me on a humane level before ever really getting involved in it. And that's why DJing was always a joy, because no matter what the age demographic was that I was entertaining or the nature of the event or the party or the nightclub, it was always everyone celebrating their life. And so, I started out as a drummer in my teens and a lot about synchronicity and keeping timing. I think a lot of those skills, the dude I went to high school with also, he became a DJ before me, I think, and he's very good at vinyl. I'm quite inexperienced with mixing vinyl, but I remember him drumming as well in a high school band, and I do think that a lot of the skills involved in keeping time and that you might learn from drumming transfer over quite well, and if you take up mixing, DJing. Yes, so that straw man fallacy is you create a false concept of someone, and then you go and attack it, so it's not even suffering for who you are, or suffering for what you stand for. It's just taking a basic stand because these people that offended you, it seems, are so arrogant as to have either forgotten or, I know from Roger's choice of words, he can't have forgotten. It would be nicer to have suffered mistreatment for what I am, not because Roger likes to fight his straw man. That talk about him being ruthless. Of course, if I haven't started a franchise, I have no idea what that's like, or aiming to have a store in most of Canberra's suburbs. The managerial stuff, I can't relate to what that would feel like.
Your body going stiff and your spine going numb. No, come get some.